Okay, you guys, welcome back to another video. Normally I'm driving around, but today I wanted to get back into this form of content where I'm actually planning what I'm talking about before I talk about it, not just so much off the cuff, because I want to provide value, not just telling you what I'm doing, not just motivating you guys, but actually provide some real value. So today's topic is, what asset should you buy? Should you buy a single family? Should you buy a duplex, triplex, fourplex? And I'm not even going to talk about, 10, 20, 30 units. Grant Cardone's got me beat on that one. Personally, I think starting off with 30 units is pretty tough. I haven't cracked that secret yet. I don't have any of that. But if you want to start something that I believe is realistic and attainable for any regular person, like me, like you, I want to talk about this. So, single family properties, that's what I started first in 2019. I bought a single family property. I was able to house hack it. I rented out every single room, and it covered the mortgage. It covered the taxes, the insurance, the PMI. Because I didn't put 20% down, you have to pay private mortgage insurance. That does not help you in any way, shape, or form. It strictly protects the bank. So anyways, that's, some nonsense fee, the rest of it. But anyways, the most important part is that all of that was covered, and that's why I bought the deal. I didn't know anything about repairs. I didn't know anything about equity. I literally bought the worst, well, not the worst deal, but it wasn't a good deal at all. It needed work. I paid full price. Realtors were involved, on market. Not my best decision. But luckily, it has increased in value over time, not necessarily because of my doing, but just because of the market. However, the one thing I did get right, and the only thing I think I got right in that deal, was I was able to cover all of my costs while living there. And then I knew when I moved out, because I was living in a room with strangers, when I moved out, I knew that my room would be cash flow. And that's exactly what happened. In fact, it got even a little bit better because interest rates went down. I was able to refinance, got rid of the PMI, so that saved me like $200 a month, decreased my overall expense, and my cash flow and rents have gone up, plus the room I was in. Lucky me. If I was to do it all over again, would I do a single family right now? Unfortunately, no. With the prices that people are demanding, and this is at least just in the Portland, Oregon area. I'm not speaking across the entire United States. I'm only going to speak to what I know, which is my local area. Is now an ideal time to buy single families? No. The prices are too high. The interest rates are too high. I don't even think if you house hacked, that strategy would be enough for you to cash flow on a single family residence. So then what do you do, Brandon? Well, I was actually at a meeting today of other real estate investors, and I had multiple people, and this shocked me, multiple people, and these were newer investors, that wanted to get into a duplex, which I respect. Single family is obviously not the way. There's just no way to make those numbers work unless you get an absolutely just devastated property, use hard money, fix it up yourself, and then maybe if you refinance, that you'll be able to cash flow. But that's a lot of work, especially for your first deal. Would not recommend that. There's a lot of ways for that to go bad. So I had a lot of people say, I have two fourplexes, two houses. I'm an investor, wholesaler, flipper, buy and hold guy, self-manage. I had multiple people who introduced themselves later. One guy bought a duplex, and I had like 3 other people say they wanted duplexes. And I went up to one of those people and I said, hey, why do you want a duplex? And she's like, well, they're better than single families. And I was like, yeah, you're 100% right. In fact, it's probably twice as good as a single family. And she said, well, I was looking at one property and, this guy was talking to me about it, and I couldn't figure out how to make it cash flow. And I said, yeah, that's my beef with duplexes too. Those aren't cash flowing, even if you're not living in it. She broke it down to me. She said, after I did this, that, and the other, the payment would be like $3,600. And I was like, okay, what are your rents collected? And she said, oh, maybe 15 on each side. So I was like, okay, negative cash flow 600. That's not good. And she said, exactly. I said, well, why are you still looking for duplexes then? Why don't you go into like a triplex or a fourplex? Like, that's all residential financing. She said, well, I've never really thought about it. And I said, well, I own 2 fourplexes and they both cash flow. And she said, well, good for you. Not in a snarky way, but like, good for you. When did you buy them? And I said, fair point, fair point. My first fourplex, I lucked out. I got an off-market deal that appraised for $30,000 more than I paid for it. So not a huge win, but somewhat of a win. And I got it at 3% interest. And she said, aha, well, yeah, if I was at 3%, all my stuff would cash flow too. And I said, but my second property, the second fourplex that I bought only a year ago. I bought in June or July but 23. Interest rates were still, they were going just like this, you guys. That interest rate is at 5.99%, so 6%. And she's like, oh, okay, so, right now you're paying maybe 7.5. So I'm a point and a half lower than everybody else right now. And I said, hey, look, I paid $730 for that. And still, those are decent prices for fourplexes, but they're off market. They're not in primo areas. They're not in Portland Central. They're on the outskirts. They are in what I would call definitely secondary and maybe even close to the outskirts of tertiary. So like these are secondary markets. These are outside of Portland, and one of them, the second one that I bought, was even further out. I'm not saying that I'm getting $3,000 a month per unit or anything like that, but the important thing is that they cash flow. And I told her not only does it cash flow, paying the PITI, it also covers the home equity line of credit I used as the down payment to get it. And she thought that was really cool. I told her I used it from the first fourplex. I said, duplexes aren't cash flowing. Single families don't cash flow. Why don't you try to get more units? The down payment's the same. The minimum is 5% on residential 4 units or less. If you own or occupy, so that's the catch, you got to own or occupy, but it's 5% down. Better than both of my fourplexes. First one I had to put 10% down, FHA, which has sustainability rules. Second, I had to put 20% down because I couldn't use the FHA. Owner occupied at that time, it was 20%. I told her, you're lucky. You only have to put 5% down to get into a 4-unit building right now. But the problem is, if you're only putting 5% down, you're probably not going to cash flow. That may not be true in Mississippi, Missouri, Florida, Wyoming, Wisconsin. Those might be different. But here in Portland, Oregon, and surrounding areas, even in Washington, Vancouver, further south, in Salem or Eugene, I don't know what it is. I'm just being honest. I'm speaking from the heart. I talk to investors all the time. I cold call investors. I reach out to these people, and I just keep hearing the same thing. People want premium prices right now. Real estate is hot. Everybody knows about it. Everybody wants to be a part of it. It's making it really hard for newbie people to get in. Even if you're not an investor, if you're just a single family home buyer and you're looking for a home for you and your family, people are devastated right now. And investors, you're competing with those people. You're competing with people who are willing to overpay for a property, who buy on emotions. As investors, we have to look at the numbers. So you're having to fight those people, and then you have to fight all the other investors. It's tough out here. But I'm telling people, if you're going to get a duplex, it's not going to cash flow. Get a triplex, get a fourplex. Yes, you're going to have to pay more, but it's not double. I'm seeing duplexes in my area that are on market for $500,000 and $600,000. You would think, well, if you get 2 more units, it would be $1 million or 1.2. Not always the case. Yes, there are some fourplexes that are listed for $1 million and 1.5 million and all that stuff. Should you buy those? Absolutely not. But that's the trick. If you scale, and this is where I give some credit to Grant Cardone, if you scale, your price per unit goes down. People are buying duplexes and they're paying $250,000 each, $250,000 per side or more, right? More than $500,000. But me, I'm buying fourplexes for $600,000, $700,000, maybe even $800,000, right? Then you're only paying $170,000, $185,000, $200,000 per door. So if you get more doors, if you do a triplex or a fourplex, your cost per unit goes down. So that's a win. And then, yes, your duplexes might be 3-bed, 1-bath, 3-bed, 2-bath. So you might get bigger units that might rent for more. If we're looking at a duplex and a fourplex in the same area, I have 4 doors. You have 2. I will always beat you in income. Even if my units are smaller, I got more of them. It's a numbers game, just like sales. The more calls you make, the more chances you have, the better opportunities will present themselves. That's what I try to convey. If you're trying to get into the game, get as many doors as you can. It's still a residential loan. You still putting 5% down. I mean, yes, you have to pay more, but it's less per unit. So, for example, my fourplex that I have, the first one I bought, yes, I got a 3% loan on it. I'm very lucky. That's not a thing anymore. Will I hold that forever? Probably. But here's the deal. I'm getting $1,600 to $1,700 per door. So let's just say worst case scenario, $1,600. So that's 32 on the bottom, 32 on the top, 64. $6,400 for that one unit. Find me a duplex that can do that. I just don't see it out there, you guys. Like, even if they're 3-bed, 2 baths, you can get $2,000. You can even get $2,500 per side. Still not beating my 4 units. So if you can manage, if you can muster the down payment and you can find a somewhat reasonable deal, and maybe you need to go off market. If there's nothing on market, go off market and try to get a hold of these people who own 4-unit buildings or even triplexes. If you get a triplex at $1,500, right? You're competing with the nicer duplex, but you have more doors and you probably paid less per door. That's an investor metric that people are looking at. I almost helped to broker a 24-unit deal between 2 people that I know. It didn't work out. The one person wanted to put it on the market, but I almost brokered the deal. And the first thing that she said to me that she wanted to sell her property for, she said, I want to sell for $175,000 per door. That is the metric that investors look for. It's cost per door. A lot of people are struggling. A lot of new investors are like, single families don't make sense. Duplexes don't make sense. What do I do? Brandon, how do I get into the game? It's still really, really hard. There's a lot of people that have 4-unit buildings and they're charging through the nose for them. But if you look 30 minutes, maybe even an hour outside of where you're at and just get a hold of every fourplex owner there and just cold call them. I've done it twice. I know it works. Get pre-qualified. Those rents will help you qualify for the loan. If you have a duplex, guess what? You have your income and one other person. Well, what about the other person? That doesn't count because you're going to have to, I'm assuming, for the best rates, move into it. So they're not counting that person because that's going to be you. So they're counting you and one other person. With a fourplex, if you own or occupy, you get 3 people helping you qualify. You have 3 other rents that are helping you qualify plus yourself. It's easier to qualify. The cost per door is down. Your ability to cash flow, in my opinion, is just better than duplexes. Duplexes are almost the same as single families right now. Too many people dogpiled into those. And I know the fourplexes aren't as sexy. The resale value on them is different than a duplex or a single family. But if you're trying to get into a cash flow asset that you can hold for a long period, your go-to strategy needs to be a 4-unit building. Comment if you think I'm crazy. Go down below. Just tell me the truth. Tell me, hey, Brandon, they don't appreciate as much. They're harder to sell. Days on market. Less people are looking for them. I get all that. But at the beginning, when you're trying to get into a deal that makes sense, that you can hold for the long term, I think it's a fourplex, you guys. And then look, when you're down the line 10, 20 years, you can worry about resale value. By that time, you'll have the property half paid off. The renters will have paid that for you. Inflation will reduce the value of the dollar that you're spending to pay for it. You'll have appreciation. You'll have all the tax write-offs and benefits. I don't know much about stocks. I don't know much about buying businesses. I don't know much about starting businesses, but I do know that getting into real estate will change your life. You got to get into it. Buy smart and be able to hold the property. You have to hold it, guys. That's the key. And the only way to do that is through cash flow. Cash flow is what allows you to hold the asset over time to get the tax benefits, to get the cash flow, to get the appreciation, right? If you are a new beginning investor looking to decrease your housing costs, trying to get into the game, that you have 3 people helping you qualify the loan, I just don't know any other way that's going to help you get into the game than getting a fourplex and house hacking it. Thanks so much. Catch you in the next one.